Kratom, ancient remedy meets modern addiction. Let me walk you through the story of kratom. This plant has been around for hundreds of years, and suddenly it has become one of the most controversial substances in the United States. What makes kratom so tricky is how it sits in two worlds at once. In Southeast Asia, it was part of everyday life. Here in America, it's become something people use for pain and anxiety, depression, and even to get off of opioids. So the real question that we're dealing with is pretty simple. When does traditional remedy cross over into something that pulls people into addiction? Kratom has very traditional roots. If we go back to the very beginning, kratom wasn't some mysterious drug. It was just a leaf picked straight from the tree. Men working in the fields and on farms, they chewed it and they brewed it into a bitter tea to stay steady during long days. It helped reduce fatigue, ease stress, and kept people focused. Nobody labeled it as dangerous. Nobody thought it was addictive. It was woven into the rhythm of daily life. But once kratom left that setting and it arrived here in the West, the context shifted completely. It's no longer just a leaf you pick. It's a product, packaged, shipped, sold, and very misunderstood. Today in the United States, you can walk into a smoke shop or a supplement store and you find kratom next to the protein powder in the energy drinks. People use it for all kinds of reasons: pain, anxiety, low mood, exhaustion. Maybe they're just trying to stay clear-headed on a long work shift. And instead of chewing leaves, they're taking powders, capsules, extracts, some of which are so much stronger than anything else used traditionally. And what used to be cultural and grounded has turned into something commercial. And with that shift, real risks start to creep in. A lot of people come to kratom because they feel like they are absolutely out of options. Someone with chronic back pain or an old injury that flares up, they might finally get a good night's sleep for the first time in months, just after taking it the first time. Others say that it quiets their anxiety enough that they can get through the day. For some, it fills the gap when they can't afford the pain treatment and they can't get a prescription. And yes, there are plenty who taper off with opioids when they're trying to pull themselves out of addiction without formal rehab. These stories are real. They're why kratom has defenders who say that it shouldn't be banned, nor should it be restricted. But these good experiences, let's be real, they're not the whole picture. There's also a mental health side. Some people say that kratom helps them feel normal again, less anxious, less depressed, much more balanced. They talk about it being the only thing that worked after therapy and medication just didn't. Others say it helped with their PTSD when nothing else would touch their symptoms. But as always, there's a flip side. Some users say that it did the opposite, that it fogs them out, makes them sluggish, turns them into someone who they didn't even recognize. And while users argue it's safer than prescription meds, the FDA has never approved it for any medical use. In fact, the DEA has even tried to schedule it multiple times. So there's a tension there, right? Personal stories saying it helps and official agencies saying they just will never trust it. As you can see from this chart, kratom strains exist with a lot of different benefits because there's so many different kinds. The ones that have more red offer you more energy. Yellow offers you better mood. Green, a lot of pain relief. Stimulation, sedation, and relaxation. So depending on what you need out of it, you would want to choose a different kind. And it acts on similar brain pathways, but each kind works differently. And that's what's so interesting about kratom. Unlike most meds or even most supplements, one of the biggest reasons that kratom gets attention is its role in opioid withdrawal. When someone tries to quit opioids, the withdrawal symptoms can be really brutal. Sweats, shakes, nausea, insomnia, overwhelming cravings. Kratom acts on the same brain pathways, so it softens that crash. Former opioid users talk about Kratom like it was the one thing that kept them from relapsing. Some people argue that it's just trading one dependency for another, but others say that if the alternative is street pills or even worse, heroin, Kratom feels like a much safer lifeline. It's complicated because both things can be true at the same time. This is where we start to see the much darker side, though. Kratom dependence doesn't hit all at once. It sneaks up. Someone might start taking a very small amount once a day, and then suddenly realize that they can't skip a dose without feeling really off. They add a little more to get the same effect. Some products are mislabeled or they're cut with other substances, which raises the danger even more. And the moment it switches from helping someone feel good to helping them just to feel normal, that's when the line between use and dependency gets really blurry. When someone tries to stop, that's when reality really hits them. People report night sweats, shaking, restlessness, nausea, headaches, trouble sleeping, diarrhea, and a lot of other things. The problem is that Kratom is sold in places that make it seem harmless. It's natural, it's legal, it's right there on the shelf, right? The presentation makes it so people assume it can't cause real withdrawal. But natural doesn't mean harmless. Lots of natural substances can hit the brain really hard. Kratom happens to be one of these. On top of that, as you can see from this map, Kratom lives in this confusing middle space. Some states have banned it completely. That's all these red states like Wisconsin, Arkansas, Alabama, Indiana, and Hawaii soon. Some states regulate it. That would be like California. And they have cities like San Diego where it's banned outright, but they're just regulating it. So someone could buy it legally in the morning, cross the state line in the afternoon, and suddenly be carrying something illegal. There's no federal rule book on how strong Kratom products should be or what they're allowed to contain. The DEA calls it a drug of concern, which isn't a ban, but it definitely isn't approval either. This patchwork of laws creates a lot of uncertainty for users and for the people trying to make policies around it. This leads us to another major concern. The lack of regulation creates another problem. Doctors have no idea what they're dealing with when a Kratom user walks into the ER. Kratom isn't part of a standard medical training. There's no official guideline for treating Kratom withdrawal or overdose. Meanwhile, some batches sold in the US have recently tested positive for salmonella, heavy metals, traces of opioids. So a patient might show up sick not from the Kratom itself, but from whatever else got mixed into it. So without clear standards or research, health workers are left guessing. In conclusion, where does this really leave us? Kratom is a plant that can help with pain, anxiety, and opioid withdrawal. It's true. But it can also create dependency, cause rough withdrawals itself, and lead to serious health problems, especially because it is so unregulated. The good and the bad, they sit right next to each other, often in that same dose. The biggest danger is the lack of consistent rules. There is no testing, there is no certainty about purity, and there is no agreed upon guideline for safe use. Until we have clear regulation backed by some sort of research, Kratom is going to stay in this really confusing space between remedy and risk. And anyone who is using it has to navigate that space without any type of safety net, the type of safety net that most medicines have. And that's why this conversation matters so much, because real people are using it and they use it every day. They're trying to make sense of something that can offer real relief, and yet they have real danger at the very same time. Thank you so much.